All right. Thank you for joining us on our 18th episode of Lead with a Vision. Today we're going to be discussing promoting diversity with Lion Carl Shaw, and I'm the host, Syed Ashar. Leo Otis has some words to share with us.
Thank you so much, Leo Syed. First of all, once again, thank you all for joining us. You continue to join us week after week, and it really is an honor to have each and every one of you join us from all over the globe. I know that many of you stay up late at night or you wake up early in the morning to join us, and we really do truly appreciate that. And I think we can see in the chat representatives from Malaysia and even from Cyprus and all over the world. Just a few reminders, as always, you can see it scrolling at the bottom of our screen. We have the attendance linked if you want to claim your attendance certificate. I think that's something that's a great thing to do, and that you can continue to participate within our series. We've done 17 great episodes so far. Looking forward to a continuance of our great session. So I'm not going to take up too much of our time. I think we have a very engaging speaker who I've had the privilege of knowing for just a few weeks now, but it feels like it's been so long because of the virtual environment. So I'm going to turn it back to Syed, who's going to turn it over to our speaker for today.
Our speaker today is Lion Carl Shaw, who's an award-winning educator, workshop presenter, and consultant. He has conducted workshops for the U.S. Department of Education, National PTA, and numerous organizations throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. He specializes in diversity, racial equity, stress management, and organizational development. Lion Carl's mission is to assist in creating a world where justice, compassion, and peace prevail. He is a member of the Bellefonte Lions Club, Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League Club, and Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity, Inc. Whenever you're ready, you can start. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be a part of this. Basically, I just want to let everyone know that it is definitely time for us to start evaluating ourselves, evaluating our associations as it relates to how we see each other in this nation and on this planet as a whole. So the Lions Club, which has an interesting origin and background that wasn't so diverse, and then over time starting to open up to diversity in many ways, admitting women and then admitting other cultures and races. We're kind of at a point where we need to reconcile our past as we move forward to the future. And the national slogan being serving through diversity is just an opportune time for us to really understand what that means and how do we exemplify what that means. And I know it's tough. I know it's hard because we are taught by our environments and by our history. And that history and our environments and sometimes our own family may embed some thoughts about other cultures that stick with us. So we have these preconceived biases and preconceived attitudes towards each other that may hinder us from connection with others. So it's tough when you are dealing with other environments that determine how you see others. And then all of a sudden, now you're just supposed to embrace diversity. Now you're just supposed to love and embrace everyone. It's hard. And my journey as well has been a long journey to embracing diversity. I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, an inner city where there was a lot of poverty, and it was a very homogenous neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of diversity. It was mostly African American. And the only way I was introduced to other cultures was first through television and second through grammar school when I went to a Lutheran school. So most European-based people that I met early age was like they were like authority figures, a principal or a teacher, so I really didn't have any opportunities to become peers with other nationalities or cultures. So that was kind of my scope through grammar school. And when I went to high school, I moved to Delaware, which is extremely diverse. My high school was extremely diverse. And that's when I got a chance to really become peers and friends with different cultures and different nationalities. So I began to open up a little bit. But also in high school, that's when I started to experience discrimination. I told the story in the Lion Address in the Embracing Diversity Symposium. I told the story about how my friends and I were racially profiled at a mall, and assaulted by police officers. And we filed a complaint and, things of that nature. We don't know what happened to the officer. We don't know what disciplinary action was taken. I think she was put on like suspension or something like that. But that was when I first experienced discrimination. So I'm starting to get to know other cultures and nationalities, but I'm also experiencing this, this trauma. So how do I reconcile that? So there was some resent, and as I started learning about, discrimination across the board in education, discrimination in economics, there's discrimination in employment, discrimination in, housing, discrimination in the criminal justice system. I mean, there was so much discrimination across the board, that I started to build this resent and ask myself, why are things the way they are? But as I went to college and started to grow a little bit more, I started to have more conversations with people. I started to communicate more with different people and really have an insightful. I really started to contemplate, my relationship with the world and how much power I had to connect with more people in the world. It really wasn't about what other people was doing. It was about what was I doing? What type of energy was I putting out into the world? So when I started to contemplate that, I was able to really open up and see a new world and actually create a new world through diversity. And it's like a 5-stage realization I kind of went through. I call it the 5 Asians. And first is just having a conversation. Second is observation. Really take a look at the world for what it is. The TV and the internet may put out a basic or sensationalized view of discrimination and race relations in America, but every day in your life, what's your quality of life like? And let's base how we feel about people on our own interactions instead of what we are programmed through television or through social media. So observation, really taking a good observation. The third Asian is education. Educate yourself. Educate yourself. Do the research on what diversity is really about, the benefits of diversity. And we'll get into the benefits of diversity later. But educate yourself. So education. And the next one was experimentation. Experimentation is I started to really experiment by I always tell the story of Lion Scott Michaels. We had a meeting one day and there was a great concert by it's a rap group called the Wu-Tang Clan. And I wanted to go see the Wu-Tang Clan. But I had a meeting with Lion Scott, and Lion Scott, of course, is European. And I said, you know what, let's go to the Wu-Tang concert together, and knowing it was going to be majority African Americans there. So it was like an experiment. It was like a social experiment, just to kind of see, what type of reactions that we would get. And it was a beautiful experience. We had a great time. And in return, he invited me to a Fish concert, which we knew was going to be mostly European Americans there. And I had a great time. So we started to really experiment. We say, hey, all this separation through through discrimination and what we see on the television and through the internet is really not. It doesn't have to be our reality. Yes, there are things we need to work on. Yes, there are systems that need fixing, systems like the education system, the criminal justice system. But you personally, day to day, living your life, can co-create a world of peace and harmony. And just doing those experimentations, those experiments really helped me to realize that. And the last Asian is just meditation. I continue to meditate. I continue to pray and ask for the oneness and the guidance, of really becoming a beacon of light when it comes to diversity, and when it comes to being a part of the solution, and being a positive example of, fellowship and service, uh, healing our nation. And if the Lions Club is about service, it should be about service to all, no matter what background. And in my presentation, I also talked about, the and a lot of people still face discrimination. There are stories that are, very, very recent of discrimination. And like I said in my presentation, that's 3 years ago. The minstrel shows, the blackface, that sort of emulate and sort of poke fun of African Americans, just happened 3 years ago. So we still have a long ways to go. So these conversations and talking with Leo Ojas and Syed, finding a common ground, and reaching out to the masses, not only in the United States but around the world, just to have an honest conversation about how you feel about various cultures and diversities. And diversity and different nationalities around the world. Like, let's have an honest conversation about it. With Lion Daniel Elkins, I had an honest conversation about how I felt about the minstrel shows in the history of the Lions Club. We had an honest conversation. And Lion Daniel said, "Hey, I get it." We have a history of discrimination, not only in the Lions, but in this entire country. But we have made strides and we have a ways to go. So with that being said, that's just a little bit of my journey, and why I think this is the opportune time to really have an honest conversation about how you see yourself, as far as how you embrace diversity. Be honest. You don't have to tell everything that you feel in your mind. That's that you don't want to, that's a little invasive. But even in private, be honest with yourself about how you feel and ways you need to grow, and then bring that energy to your club, and then embrace diversity, know your environment, know your community, and then reach out. So with that being said, I'm just going to go into some pointers on how you could begin to diversify your Lions Club. And then after I go through those pointers, I would like to take it back over to Leo Syed and Leo Ojas, and really have a three-way conversation about their experiences. I'd like to ask them some questions and really build on what we can do together as an international club to bring more diversity and help heal this nation. So starting with diversifying Lionism, I think the first step is to make an honest evaluation of your current club, and ask yourself, after you evaluate your current club, does your current club reflect the demographics of your surrounding community? Right? So that's step two. Do an evaluation and do like a needs assessment of your surrounding community. I would say between, and this is just a number I'm throwing out there, between 10 and 20 miles, a 10 and 20 mile radius. What's your demographic? Like, what's your cultural makeup within a 10, 20 mile radius of your club? Being, if you're rural, you may want to do a 20 mile radius. If you're like an inner city, or you're like a metropolitan area, a 5 to 10 mile radius may be, good enough for you to do an assessment of that community, and ask yourself, does my Lions Club reflect my surrounding community? Now, here's the tricky part. The tricky part is, let's say your surrounding area does not have a lot of diversity. Let's say you live in a very homogeneous area where most, people are of the same nationality, culture, and background. You have to be okay with that. There's two options you have. Number one, either you're just going to be okay with that and still train your lions, train your club on embracing diversity, train your club on cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity. Even though you can't diversify your club per se, you could still educate your club and train your club on how to interact with other lions when they go to other district meetings or international meetings. They still have that awareness and they have that education of how to interact. So maybe your club cannot be diverse because you don't live in a diverse environment. Or number two, because we are in a virtual environment now because of this pandemic, a lot of people are trying to look for the silver lining, even though this is a very challenging period for everyone. You have to find the silver lining, and the silver lining, take this opportunity to reach out to other demographics, even though it's outside of your service area, and get them to join your club virtually. That's just another solution. I'm not saying you have to do it, but that's an option. That's something that you can do to diversify your club. Start having virtual members, and look into the bylaws and see, if that's something that your club would be open to or something that you can do. But yes, that's another way to diversify your club. So just to review, you have to assess your current club demographic and see if your current club reflects your current environment. Number two is assess your community to a 10 to 20-mile radius. And if you don't have diversity, the other option you have is to reach out and try to get people to join your club virtually to create diversity within your club. The third point I want to bring about is to create a recruiting plan. Create a recruiting plan. You just can't say, okay, we're just we're gonna become diverse. Everybody get out there and try to find different cultures. Come up with a plan. There's a term. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So create a plan and an implementation team of how you're going to implement that plan of how to diversify your club, and make sure that you're also training your club in cultural sensitivity and cultural awareness, so that when people are invited to this club, they feel welcomed. It's very important. You can have someone join your club and not feel welcome, and you don't retain that person. So make sure you're educating. I may be getting ahead of myself here. And then last but not least, to diversify your club, you want to engage and educate your new members early and often. You could join a club and say, hey, we have our first new, let's say we have our first new Middle Eastern member of our club. Great, our job is done. We diversified our club, that's it. And that person doesn't feel engaged, they don't feel involved. You could lose that person. So make sure once you recruit to diversify your club, you engage and you get them involved early and educate them on what Lionism is about, and have them do service projects. Constantly invite them to service projects, constantly invite them to meetings. Make sure that they're engaged. Make sure that you're constantly recruiting continuously to diversify your club, because that will lead to retention of your new members when they see the club making a concerted effort to really diversify and involve everyone in the community. You retain your members more. All right. So when you start to when you make the decision to diversify your club, you have your plan, you're engaging. Make sure you have the conversation. Make sure you have the conversation about why diversity is important, about why we need to address discrimination in this world, why we need to come together to make the world a safer and better place for our children. And then you talk about race, and you talk about diversity, you talk about the gender disparities, and then you conclude with next steps. All right, so now we talked about it. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to move things forward? What are we going to do to move things forward? And with that being said, so what's next is, after you put these things in place to diversify your club, you evaluate your implementation plan, you diversify your leadership, and then you host refresher workshops to keep the spirit of that embracing diversity going. All right. And then once you are successful in diversifying your club, then you can become a spokesperson of your club. That's why Lion Daniel Elkins is really a strong spokesperson within the Lion communities, because he did an excellent job diversifying his club. All right, I hope this information was helpful. And at this point, I think we're going to start a Q&A, and we could add Leo Syed whenever you're ready, and then we can move forward. There you are.
Yeah, if our viewers would like to put their questions in the comments, that would be very appreciated. So
Okay.
I would like to ask you, Lion Carl, can you go into the details of the differences between diversity and inclusion, since those words are used very interchangeably?
Interesting. Interesting question. I could only give you my point of view. Of course, you could do your Google research and come up with your own point of view. But I think diversity has more of a holistic state of being. That diversity is just what it is. Inclusion, I think, is when you kind of inclusion. I think inclusion has more intention. So what I mean by that is, if you don't have an African American executive on your team, or don't have an African American leader, you're going to have a concerted effort to seek out, African Americans in order to, include them into the executive team or the leadership process. Diversity is just what it is. Either you have diversity or you don't. And diversity, like I was saying before, in your community, you may look around your community and don't see any diversity, and that's just what it is. So diversity, I think, is pretty much what it is. Inclusion is the action of diversifying what is. I don't know if that's clear, but like I said, diversity is what is basically your baseline. You are evaluating your diversity, and once you evaluate your diversity and you want more diversity, then you can implement some kind of inclusion plan. So I think inclusion is more, more directed towards, the nurturing of diversity. And I think diversity is just like what it already is. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I agree with the concept that like inclusion is more of the like emotional intention to really like retain members, like you said.
Correct.
Feel welcome, while diversity is just like more statistical in a sense.
Correct. So I have a question for you also, Leo Syed.
Okay.
Like, yeah. Tell me about your club and about your demographic makeup of your club.
From my experience, the demographic of the New Jersey Cyber Visionary Leos Club, it is mainly South Asian. Yet I still find so many like different like individuals, like looking past culture. I've met so many different people of the same race that think differently than me.
Wow.
And I've made very good friends from different towns that just have such different like philosophies about how they should go about life. And I think that's embracing individualism is like the most important thing about diversity. Like,
Wow. So from where you are now, what do you see your club doing to diversify, and sort of broaden your membership?
I can see us implementing new recruiting plans in order to bring more diversity and retain with inclusion of making people feel valued and welcomed into our programs.
Great. So before we go into, is there another question there?
Anyone from the chat would like to ask, please do. Feel free.
Good. So go ahead. What were we gonna say?
No, you can go. It's all right.
Good. I was going to say, while we're waiting on questions, I just want to make sure I would be remiss to admit this part of the information that I want to put across, and hopefully this part will be used moving forward, and with some motivation on why you should diversify your club. So I just want to label some benefits These are research-based benefits of having a diverse club, a diverse organization, or a diverse business structure. There's more cooperation and collective resources when you have a diverse team. You have access to different perspectives, which is invaluable. You have a broader knowledge and skill base when you have diversity. There's more creativity, there's more innovation because you have different perspectives. The benefits are astronomical. That should really make you want to get out there and diversify anything you're involved in. You attract, you engage, and you retain more people in your business or your organization or your team. You improve your cultural insight because you have different views, different cultural views on your team. There's more effective problem solving. There's more effective decision making, collective decision making. There's more opportunity for growth and life enrichment. And it's just socially responsible. It's just a socially responsible thing to do. And it also creates a better world view. It creates a better reputation for your club. So these are all the benefits. These are just some of the benefits in embracing diversity. So hopefully, as I list those and you do your own research, that'll give you some motivation to really diversify your club.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on how you said you were from Jersey City, where you had a homogenous community.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that even in the most densely populated state in America, we still have like pockets where we have this idea where our state is really diverse, that we were talking about this earlier between you and Leo Ogis. Yeah, it's so interesting that even then we still find ourselves in these predicaments where we aren't able to embrace each other as well. And there's differences.
Right. Yeah.
Like what you were saying, the authority figures being of European descent. I was just wondering if there's anything you would like to add to
that. Just grow, just experience life. We all have a certain scope of awareness when we're young. We're young, and you may have a certain scope of awareness when you're old. When you're an old guy too. But you have to be willing to grow. And it's just interesting now that you would have a narrow scope of view when it comes to diversity, when we have access to so much information. We have, like, through the internet, you have access to the world. So for you to want to base your existence on separation, you're cutting yourself off from, I would say, like 90% of the world. Like, why would you want to do that? Like, why would you want to limit your existence because of fear? Because that's all it is. It's fear. It's fear of the unknown. It's misguided energy. It's misunderstanding, and it hurts you. It was a civil rights leader that spoke, and he basically spoke of the healing that needs to take place from those who are being discriminated against and those who are doing the discriminating. Like there's a sickness there too. There's a sickness because there is a misguided view, that there's a mental illness there. There's a misguided view of the human race, that you would want to subjugate, or worse, to other people. That's a mental illness. That's a sickness. So that oppressor or that discriminator needs healing as well. And of course, those who are being discriminated against, who are experiencing the trauma, they need healing too. So I guess we're at a point in life where we just need to get to a point where we're able to heal each other, help each other heal. And through these conversations, through, like I said, training, through preparation, through reaching out to other demographics on purposely, to sit down at a table and really discuss life. Let's discuss goals, common interests, because as human people, we have a lot more in common than we do not. We don't realize that. We have a lot more common ground to stand on than we do, differences. We both, like, I think all people genuinely want to be happy. I think all people genuinely want to feel loved. They want to feel connected. I think all people genuinely want to feel productive. So if we have these things in common, why don't we all get together to help each other make that happen instead of knocking each other down, creating more negative energy, and nobody wins. It just doesn't make sense to me. So at this point, I think we need to put our childhood aside, our misconceptions aside. Of course, you learn from you learn everything, but as you grow, and like I said, in the Leos, like you guys are in a very crucial stage in your life, because you're going from adolescence to adulthood, but you have the access that we didn't have in our childhood. You have access to information. You're living in the information age. So make sure you're educating yourself, and like having Lion Ojas and you guys, reach out to me to have this conversation is just evidence that you guys are on the right track. Right. So just keep up the great work.
All right, thank you. Before we wrap up for today, I want to ask one last question. In your experience, what has been the hardest part of working in a diverse environment, like overall?
Wow. The discomfort, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you the story of my first. It's a good question, by the way. I'll tell you the story of my first Lions meeting. I met Lion Scott Michaels first, and then I met Lion Daniel Elkins through Scott Michaels. They're both European Americans. And we didn't get into this. You notice I say European Americans. I don't use the term white or black, because whites, the color white, as you could see, the color crown, I don't know anybody that color, and black, as far as the color black, I mean, my skin is brown. I've never met anybody with black skin. I heard people say, like, some people, have black skin. I've never met them. So I've never met a black person, or I've never met a white person. So if you notice, I say European based or African based, but I digress. But going back to what I was talking about when I met Lion Scott and Lion Daniel. What was the question again? I kind of got sidetracked.
What's the most difficult part of working?
Right. So the first meeting, we was at a restaurant. I walked into a restaurant, and it's so funny that I consider myself someone like very well versed in diversity and wanting to get to know new people, but my soul, my spirit drew me towards Lion Ellis, who was another African American. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was like what I was drawn to. It was an open seat next to him. He looked at me and gave me a nod, so I went over there and sat next to Lion Ellis. And I was like kind of disappointed in myself. I was like, man, you're supposed to be on this diversity thing, and here you are, the first person you connect with is African American, even though the European Americans were the first people to invite you to the Lions Club. So having your implicit, that they call that implicit bias, like you have bias that you don't even know you have. So having that ingrained connection. It's okay to be connected with people, who have similar cultures than you, but I think that was the biggest challenge is, still having inside of my mind, I feel comfortable with Lion Ellis, so I'm going to sit next to him, so the challenge for me is still to continue to stretch myself and say, no, I know Lion Ellis is cool, what have you, but I'm going to meet somebody new. I'm going to sit next to somebody new and get to know them. So that's always going to be the challenge. Either you're going to be comfortable, and some it depends on what kind of mood you're in too. If you don't feel like being social, whatever, honor that feeling, and sit next to somebody you already know. But if your mood is going to allow you to really be welcoming, I think you should approach someone of a different nationality that you don't know and really start to build that bridge. So that's my challenge. My challenge is basically living my words. So that's always going to be a challenge, practicing what you preach.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very nice to hear. I'd like to give Leo Ojas the platform now.
Thank you both so much. I very much enjoyed that presentation. I thought it was absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, we are limited by time. But if any of you have any questions, I believe the chat's being a little bit shy today. So please reach out to Lauren Carl on Facebook. I'm sure that he'll love to connect with you and how we can continue to make our organization more diverse and how we can continue to serve all over the world. One point that that really stuck out to me from Lion Carl's presentation is that we have to look like the communities that we're serving. If we make our clubs more diverse, that's only going to make our service impact increase. And that's what we're trying to do through this leadership series. It's great to build all these skills for our own personal, professional lives, but that's how we're going to benefit our organization, by continuing to develop our leadership and our diversity. So thank you so much, Lion Carl, Leo, Syed. I'm just going to spotlight our session next week. We're going to be joined by past International Director Cindy Gregg from Pennsylvania, who's going to commemorate how we can continue to empower women and young members in Lionism in commemoration of International Women's Day, which is, of course, on March 7th. And then additionally, I'd like to invite each and every one of you, and I'll continue to advertise this over the next week. The Leo Advisory Panel is going to be holding an international symposium on April 17th from 11 to 12 Central. I highly encourage you all to attend. It's going to be a great experience to hear from our international officers and also to learn about how we can continue to empower youth leaders in our organization. So thank you both so much. I'm going to turn it back to Syed, who's going to close us out for today. And then let's continue to engage with each other on Facebook and in virtual environments so that we can continue to lead with a vision.
Thank you, guys. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank our guest, Lion Carl, for helping us learn how to promote diversity within our clubs. And that has been all for the 18th episode of Lead with a Vision. So thank you all for joining, and we appreciate the company.
Thank you.